Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to another special edition of Arthniti, where we discuss expectations of different sectors in the run-up to the Union Budget 2023-24. So after speaking about defence, health and education, today our focus will be on rural development. What are the kinds of initiatives that the sector is anticipating? Will the spending towards agricultural and rural growth see an increase? Also, what kind of focus can we expect from the Finance Minister towards rural infrastructure, rural schemes and employment generation in rural areas? All this and much more in this edition of the program. Rural revitalization plays an essential role in fulfilling the country's aim of not just becoming a $5 trillion economy, but also a self-sufficient one at that. The previous budget of 2022-23 emphasized a strong focus on rural upgradation and development. Will we see the same kind of thrust from the government towards the sector in the upcoming budget as well? Let's hear it from eminent experts joining us on the program. Delighted to have with us in the studio Dr. Vivek Kumar, Professor, Centre for Rural Development and Technology, IIT Delhi. Professor, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program. Dr. Aman Agarwal, Director, Indian Institute of Finance. Dr. Agarwal, thank you for your time. Welcome to Arthniti. And joining us virtually is another guest, Mr. Alok Sinha, former CMD FCI. Mr. Sinha, glad to have you on the program as well. Let me begin the program today with you, Mr. Sinha. What are your expectations for the rural development sector? Do you think and do you expect the government to actually increase spending, increase the rural spending?
You know, I have no doubts that the government will definitely increase the budget provisions for the rural sector. But if it was left to me, I would like to lay a focus on improving the infrastructure of marketing. You know, the 3 farm laws which were repealed, if had they been in execution, marketing would have been easier. Now that we are back to the pre-laws situation, yet we got to ensure that the farmer gets a good and fair price for his produce. And if the farmer gets a good price, then automatically the farmer modernizes himself also. Now, in the field of wheat and rice, there is no problem of marketing. Because whatever is the surplus is bought up by the FCI. If the private sector is not capable of mopping it up. But in wheat and rice is only 1/3 of the entire rural output. So in the field of horticulture and in the field of pulses and other coarse grains, marketing has to be improved. So I would like to see a dream where more budget provision is made for improving the marketing structure by way of not only improving the mandi systems, but also to give subsidies to the farmer in case the farmer wants to shift from paddy to some other crop, because paddy is rice is a water consuming crop, and it leads to a severe drop in the water table. So my expectation, my dream would be increased expenditure on marketing infrastructure.
Okay. Let's see what Dr. Agarwal has to say. I'll take a remark also from you on what kind of impact has the repeal of the farm laws had on this sector. But before that, your expectations, also considering the fact that this is going to be the last full budget of the Modi government, what is the kind of thrust that you expect from this government on infrastructure development, on rural growth?
You see, it's very important to understand that the rural India is the real India.
Yes.
And that's where the life and the heart of this country lies. And irrespective of which government is in power, if they do not focus and develop and think about the rural India, then we are not going to see the kind of growth which we have been dreaming of, whether it is 5 trillion, 6 trillion, 10 trillion, being felt by the people and then leading to a long-term growth. In 2020, when Corona hit, the government went up in terms of increasing it by 81%. We did not see that kind of an increase. Last year, we saw a fall, in fact, by 11%. This year, I'm expecting anywhere between 15 to 20% rise, which is expected to be there in the budget allocations for rural development, which encompasses some components of even financial inclusion, like the Jan Dhan Yojana. It also encompasses some agriculture frame structures as well, apart from the Sadak Yojana and others which are there. Now, in my opinion, the government will lay stress on, not because it's the full budget, last full budget, but keeping the tune in which they have been growing and the way they have been trying to project and develop the framework and make people in the rural India empowered. I think in that framework, they will keep their thing going, and it would see that growth coming up. In fact, we saw some good figures from the IMF also come from the GDP, which is a motivating factor for the government, because lately around the world there is a rumor about fiscal deficit eating away growth extensively, which we are not seeing. The government has become at a cushion factor because an external agency like the IMF, is there, who is projecting your growth and telling you that you are on the right track. Now that gives a more confidence, not only to the finance minister, but each ministry in terms of thinking about allocating more resources, structuring them and putting them on ground, because that shows that not only India, which we are seeing as a growth here, but the internationally is observing that in figures and numbers as well. So from my perspective, I think it will be certainly a good budget. It will project more. Last budget, I put it as an elephant with the wings being added, with a lot of digitalization impact and structure, wings being added. I think this budget will add boosters, like you used to have turbo engines, in cars, in cartoons. We will have those kind of boosters added to the same elephant with the wings, moving forward to a more height and better height. And that's what even the IMF figures and the report recently come out has projected.
Okay. So, Dr. Kumar, when he says that, he expects some kind of boosters, will we see more reallocation for funds in the existing schemes, or can we expect newer initiatives in this sector from the government? What is your anticipation?
See, if you look at the expenditure of this government towards rural areas, so they don't only focus through Ministry of Rural Development, but so for example, they are focusing on basic amenities, they are focusing on health mission, rural health mission, they are focusing on school education, and through different ministries, they have been investing in rural areas. So for example, if you look at the Jal Jeevan mission, so there is a huge investment in Jal Jeevan mission, and in last 2 years, almost 6 crore households, they have come under this functional tap household tap connections. Similarly, there is an investment on rural infrastructure in terms of household latrines. So, sanitation, there is a huge investment. Yes. Rural health mission, there has been investment. So, I think this government will continue investing in such projects. This is one. So, they will continue with these schemes. But surely, as one of the experts also suggested, that there is a need to make investment in marketing. So I would say that with repealing of this farm law, now this opportunity is lost. So there is a need in the need for the investment in supply chain, and that is where we need a lot of reforms. Right. And now because we don't have farm laws with us, so government has to explore the possibility of public-private partnership in supply chain. So there I expect that some investment will be there, because with farm laws, probably government was anticipating that a lot of private investment will come. That is one. Second area, I think, because in various schemes, government talks about the participatory approach, like in Jal Jeevan Mission also. So the 15th Finance Commission, like the initiative is started in 14th Finance Commission, so where some funds are allocated to panchayats, where they can spend those funds directly as per their own planning. So that is another area. So where panchayats should get empowered to do spending as per their own planning. So that is the second area where I expect that there should be some investment, or there should be some policy from the government. And third is financial reforms. So now if you talk about financial instruments, we don't have many financial instruments for rural areas. So typically what we have loans for agriculture things. So there are other needs also for rural people. There are life cycle needs. There is a need for whole investment in the infrastructure like irrigation facilities and all. Right. So I think these three areas, which still I feel that a lot of things need to be done by the government. But otherwise, I feel that government will continue investing in the schemes. They are doing, very good. So like Jal Jeevan Mission I mentioned and other schemes.
So I'll come to what really is the way forward and what are the some of the initiatives that you expect the government to do in the times to come, which is the need of the hour. But coming back to the important point of the repeal of the farm laws. So now a lot of experts that we spoke to, even during that period when there were protests going on over those laws, and they said this was a reformative measure which would be a game changer. But unfortunately, because of the protests, because of the hue and cry, they had to be rolled back. The question now is, we want a change. Even the farmers, even those who had been protesting were to benefit. Nevertheless, it was rolled back. Is there a provision to actually bring that reformative measure through some kind of initiative in the budget? And that could, of course, transform the entire sector that was envisioned earlier.
You see, it's unfortunate that those laws had to go off. But now that they are off, there can be measures which were clearly mentioned in those laws, which can be actually taken up by departments. And they can be introduced. There is no restriction by any ministry or department not to introduce the procedure which were laid down in the law. It may not be an act, it may not be a law, but certainly those procedures well laid out, well thought about, huge discussions have gone in. The second thing, in my opinion, is when you talk about markets, we already have tested the platform of GEMS, which is typically restricted to basically public sector undertakings as of now and large public sector undertakings, which the government had an idea to in fact extend it further. And given the fact that India is the central focus, whether it is a question of agriculture, whether it's a question of tertiary productions, whether it's a question of manufacturing goods and services, all these segments, India is a major buffer provider to the rest of the world. Whether it is now medicines also, chemicals, everything we are providing today. And the world has also recognized this. So there is automatically an inflow. And that's why we saw even the current account deficit this time, which is reported gone up very high. So, deficit has come down, but the revenues have gone up, trade amounts have gone up. Now, this is clearly reflective of the fact the way world is eyeing at India for almost all kinds of needs, whether it is organic agriculture, whether it is non-organic agriculture, whether it is actually building these kind of roads, which India is now facilitating at a very fast rate, whether it is providing certain basic facilities and services, even trying to put forward a smart city project around the globe. Now, given those frameworks, and India as a buffer in terms of servicing those factors, we need a platform, and already GEMS has been tested for quite some time now, and that is fairly strong, robust. And the financial framework which the RBI is providing in terms of integrating, now you can do transactions throughout the day, and with the rupiah coming in, with the digital rupee which is already being tested now, we think it would be a game changer in terms of boosting the revenue generation for a common man, introducing whatever was suggested in the act in the real life and people benefiting from it. In my opinion, even earlier it could have been a very good way. It's just that the communication which was supposed to be done could not have been materialized, and people did not really understand as to how is it going to benefit. You see, people in India and around the world in developing countries are very afraid of changes. Why? Because once you develop a system, then you have cheesed the palms of everybody. And you know how things are working. You know how much extra expenditure I have to make, who do I have to go, who do I have not to go. When a new system comes in place, irrespective of the intentions of the government, people feel, oh, now I'll have to do the homework again. The whole process has to be relearned again. Now I'll have to plush the palms of everybody again and develop that. And that is one thing which scares large number of people at the lower echelons in the society, which do not have so much of surplus money to go about actually doing the whole framework again. And that is where it became a lacuna, a more of a communication gap, which led to a very good acts going off the market.
Clearly,
but certainly in terms of implementation, there is nothing which can stop it.
I think that's a huge challenge. That's an important point, Mr. Sinha. The fact that, change is something that we're all skeptical of. But the truth is, if we want the kind of transformation, if we have set an ambitious goal to become a developed country by 2047, which is in the next 25 years, we have to undergo transformation at a very, very rapid pace. Now, another challenge that we are going to face, and we in fact are facing, is the huge population. We will be the most populated country anytime during this year, overtaking China. And the larger challenge will be to ensure that we are able to take care of the needs, the basic needs of 1.4 billion people. Food security is very, very important for us. How do you expect the finance minister to take this forward, considering that population is a huge challenge, but it is the responsibility of the government to ensure food security for every Indian? So towards food security, what are the kind of expectations that you have from the finance minister?
as far as food security in terms of wheat and rice is concerned, there's not much to do. There's not much new to be done except to keep the momentum going. However, the nutrition levels have to go up. So therefore, the coarse grains like dal, etc., they have their prices have to come down. Their output has to go up, and they should also be increasingly put as part of the monthly rations which are subsidized and distributed to the BPL variety of people. So that is needed. So therefore, we don't have to worry much about wheat and paddy anymore. We got to now think on how to make coarse grains and dals available in increasing quantities to the poor. That is the need of the hour. Secondly, if I may just quote the Amul example, the whole game is how to remove the middleman between the producer and the consumer.
Clearly.
In the case of milk cooperatives, as symbolized by Amul, the middleman has vanished. There is the producer, there is the consumer, the prices are stable, and the quality is very high. In fact, we now export about 10,000 crores rupees worth of dairy products to Russia and other countries. What we need is a similar revolution in the case of horticulture, so that the middleman is removed between the producer and the consumer. That will automatically lead to not only better prices for the producer, but lower prices for the consumer, and it will motivate the producer into going in for quality specifications.
Right, that's an important point, removing the middleman, Professor Kumar. I recall there was an initiative announced about the direct benefit transfer to the people against payments made towards a minimum support price. How workable has that been? And is there anything that requires to be changed or amended in that procedure to make it more successful? Perhaps that communication aspect is still missing. We're not able to convince the person at the end that this is going to directly go to you without the middleman. So that fear that my money may get lost somewhere has to be removed. How do we do that?
See, things are changing very fast, and of course, technology has a very important role to play in today's transformative world. And I think in rural India it is working very well. Though many times experts they say that rural people are not adapting the technology so well, but it is working. You look at the digital transactions today. The way we are moving ahead in digital transaction, that shows that common man is going for that. And this direct benefit transfer DBT is also working well. If you look at the Manrega, so now most of the payment, the wage payments are being done through DBT, right? Then Ujjwala, then many schemes. And people initially they had certain apprehensions, but now they have accepted this. And I tell you one thing, this government, the focus of the government on technology and appropriate use of technology. So if you look at the latest use of technology in Swamitva Yojana, where government is digitizing the land records, and the rural India, number of cases if you look at in rural areas, it is mostly related to land disputes. Now with this digitization and the use of drone and use of space technology, and so what will happen, and already government says that they have already covered around 2 lakh villages. So once it is done, people in rural areas, they will have more belief in technology. So I don't think that people in India are regressive. They are open to technology, right? The only thing is that they need to understand, or they need to have examples that this technology is benefiting them. So this DBT they have accepted because they know that it is directly, the money is directly coming to them. Of course, today also some sort of leakage pilferage is there, but still this pilferage has gone down. I can share one example with you. One of my so recently in this 25 kg grain distribution scheme, a few of our students were doing some work in the field, and one of my students told me that today there is a pilferage, and then I asked then what is the amount of the pilferage. So they told me that instead of 25 kg, now the families they are getting 24 kg. Now there was a time when families were not, so I am not saying that this 1 kg is acceptable. What I am saying is, with technology, now people are realizing that this leakage has stopped. So that is why they are accepting. So I believe that we need not to have any fear about technology. People are using it and people are accepting these technologies.
In fact, that was one of the suggestions and an important reform that the farm law spoke about, ensuring that the money goes directly to the person who it belongs to instead of the middleman, but apparently there was a lot of reluctance. So the thrust clearly of this government has been on rural infrastructure, on piped water and sanitation, as you suggested, and a lot of acceptance to digitization also. But what about creating jobs in the rural areas? That is one important concern that is highlighted time and again. And every budget, there is a lot of hope that there will be an initiative to take care of this aspect. So rural employment generation, what do you expect from the finance minister?
So there are three components. One is the population, which you highlighted. In economics, in the traditional economics, a population was always considered to be a curse. But for the last 10 years or so, population is considered to be a blessing, because most countries are deprived of this population component.
Yes.
And specifically youth, which will be the tomorrow, which is going to finance the tomorrow, and the people who have already served this country in the past as seniors now, their financing will be done by the youth. Now that youth is missing in most countries, so people are looking at, even China has changed its child policy primarily for the fact that the population is a very important component. So from a complete sea-phase change in economic thinking in processes is that from a curse, it is a blessing now. Firstly. Secondly, the blessing will be the blessing if you are able to channelize that energy in the right direction. And I am very happy that, I have been speaking about this even at here, even at other places for the last 3-4 years. And Pradhan Mantri Modi, couple of months back, talked about opening up those seats which they were restricted. Almost most departments in the government, ministries and all places in the country had only almost about 50 to 60% vacancies, which were not filled up in the last 3-4 years, given the lean government and better governance framework which the government was projecting. And I'm happy that Pradhan Mantri Modi opened that up, because unfortunately even today in this country, when we talk of job, it means government job. Right. It is not like, someone working in the private sector or a private school. He's also working, he's also doing a job, but they don't consider it as a job. They say job means only when a government gives a job, then it is a question of job. Then you have that security, the pension framework and everything coming into play. So from that perspective, I think the government has already stepped in foot, and they've already opened up and announced how many lakhs and millions of jobs they wanted to give out in terms of opening up these departments. And there's a framework which is already in place, and hopefully this year, another couple of months, we will see the clock ticking much faster. That is one. Secondly, I don't see too much of allocations again in Manrega specifically, because they, as my colleague just said, developments in rural India is not coming from one ministry or one department, at least used to be in the past. Yes. There are multiple departments now. Jal Yojana is coming, Panchayati is coming, then you have the road and transportation, they are building it up. So the Manrega specifically, I don't think there will be too much of growth there. But certainly there will be allocations, there will be stability there, but then there will be openings of these jobs in other sectors and frameworks which the government is looking at, both in terms of technology as well as in terms of agricultural upgradation. And my colleague just mentioned, in fact, we suggested a long time back about, eradicating the middleman. The fact was that how do we go about it? Because almost the price jumps to 2 or 3 times or 4 times, at times 400% of the price which a farmer is getting, and he would not get anything. So we suggested by our studies that, why when we create mobile mandis, and we have mandis where a farmer knows that, because a farmer is a producer, he is not a marketer, he is not a seller, he is basically a producer. So, and today he has mobile. So if you are connected with this mandis which are there, and they are all on internet platforms now, so if he tells I have so much of produce, and this message goes to all the mandis, then those integrated mandis are already there, they send their vehicle to pick up the produce. So first of all, there is no middleman coming in. Secondly, he will get a better price than which he will get from a middleman or a third party at all. And thirdly, the product will directly come with least wastages, because first he will sell it to someone, then he will bring it there,
and there will be a lot of structuring
will be there. And as I said, he is not a marketer. He can only produce. Most farmers are producers. Maybe some of their children have got into new technological frameworks and they're trying to market it to overseas markets, but that's not marketing to India and selling it to India. So if you're able
In fact,
to
I remember
bridge that
and I
gap,
recall one of the experts saying on my panel that the same farmer who produces wheat will be selling it for 2 rupees a kg. He goes to buy the biscuit, which is made out of the same wheat. He will buy it for 50 rupees a packet. So the irony is, I mean, he has to, of course, bear the brunt of it because the middlemen are benefiting at his cost.
from it.
But let's hope the pilferages have been taken care of and whatever leakages that you spoke about are also taken care of. There are stricter measures in place to ensure that this culture and this system of middleman goes away. But I think the solace will be, the bigger solace will be to provide employment to the thousands of people living in rural areas who are seeking jobs in better places. And as he said, government jobs because they provide security and pensions. So let's expect the finance minister to at least announce some kind of initiative that takes care of the rural employment. Time allows me to take up only that much on the program. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of Arthniti, sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. That's it from us on the program, viewers. See you again next time.